You want me to hop in, Hunter?
You're good.
Hey, Coach Deifel, I'm driving, so that's why you can't see me. I'm on the phone call with this, but probably the most anticipated regular season series, at Bogle today, welcoming Oklahoma in. Just what are your thoughts about kind of the excitement around this series?
Yeah, there's a ton of excitement for a number of reasons. I mean, one, we have two really high caliber softball teams playing. Their first matchup or two, it's a first matchup in SEC play. Three, there's obviously family ties. Four, it's proximity, which is going to create a really electric atmosphere with our fan base and their fan base traveling well. And so I think that there's a lot of different reasons why there's just a lot of excitement around this series. The one I'm most intrigued by is just two high level teams going at it on the field.
I'll ask one more real quick. Just what do you think of the team this past weekend to really on Sunday respond the way that they did?
Yeah, that was the thing that I was most proud of our team is obviously Friday and Saturday didn't go as planned as we wanted to. It wasn't a good version of ourselves. There was nothing that was really firing, and they just really stuck together. And their response on Sunday was tremendous. My feeling on them or my pride that I have in their response isn't the 20-3 final. It's the approach that they had, the mentality that they had, their commitment to their process and our plan, their execution. And then it led to obviously a great result. But I was just really more impressed with them and their response to how they wanted to play and how they wanted to compete.
Dudley?
Coach, obviously you're playing a pretty quality team this year. I mean, this weekend. Talk a little bit about what kind of team they have this year.
They have a high quality team. They're undefeated. They have, I think, the number one ranking. I don't look at that a lot, but they're undefeated and they're playing really well, playing really confidently. Every time we take the field, we play a really great opponent. This weekend's no different. And so I think with the SEC, what we're seeing throughout is it's just a battle no matter who you're playing. And so this weekend's going to be a huge battle. It's our first time matching up with them when quite a few years. And what you're seeing from them is what you always see from Oklahoma, a really well-coached, prepared team that knows how to win. They fight every pitch that they have. They have a lot of depth in the circle. They're relying on a lot more arms than typical that they've had in the past. And they're young, but that's what Patty always does. She gets her team ready. She gets them really confident, and that's what we're seeing from their play right now.
Speak on that dynamic a little bit of having a mom in one dugout and the son in the other.
Yeah, I think that's the added excitement of them coming in and just having those family ties. I know that you had a chance to ask DJ. He's the better one to ask the feeling that comes with that. But I think anytime you do anything, you want to make your parents proud. He's learned so many lessons from them. He's also learned a lot on his own and made his own name. And so there's those feelings of wanting to make your parents proud, your mom, your dad proud. He's a competitor, so his focus is going to be on getting our team the most prepared and ready and fighting every pitch. And so I'm just excited about anytime you get to see your family, it's fun. They have Lori, they have their two kids, so they get to come and a work trip coincides with a family trip. And so I think that's the thing away from the field. That's fun. And then when we get to the field, it's two really good teams going at it.
You talked about the approach on Sunday in the first inning from the hitters. Talk about that a little bit and how they came out and just got done what they needed to get done, obviously.
Yeah, I just think their commitment to the plan was on a different level Sunday. And you could see that from the first pitch. And I think that's something that we're still learning. This team's, young in a lot of ways. They're green in a lot of ways. And so we're still learning a lot of those lessons. And I think that's one thing that will serve us long term is them seeing the implementation and commitment to a plan, and seeing that, what that looks like. You can't be half in, you can't, just dabble in a plan. You have to go full in. And so that's what we saw from Sunday, from the first pitch Sunday on.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Eric?
Coach, do you remember when you met Patty and DJ for that matter, and how did that connection happen?
Well, I met Patty earlier, I think, in my playing career, or I just knew of her. Obviously, she's really close with Margie Wright, who coached my sister. And so you just knew of that connection, that coaching connection. And then we competed against Oklahoma in my time playing. My connection with Patty came from my sister actually recruiting at the time. And I was playing in Japan and knew I was ready to be done. I wanted to get my master's. That's something my mom always was really big on for me and my sister, was just making sure we got our master's before anything else. And so my sister is actually recruiting with Patty and I was in Japan and I just said, "Hey, will you ask if she has a GA spot?" And it was just like random coincidence. They were sitting next to each other at a game, and I happened to talk to my sister, and she said she was sitting next to her, and she knew Patty through Margie, and so it was that simple of like they happened to have a mid-season departure, and I happened to be looking for a mid-season or mid-year spot, and she called me, I think, the next day, and it just kind of worked out. It was timing's crazy. It can be good, it can be bad. That was a case of really good timing. And so that's how I first got connected with Patty and being the GA at Oklahoma. And I started in January. I don't remember my first meeting of DJ. I think he was in high school or, when I was there. And so you have your own life. When you're in high school, you have way cooler things than to be at the softball field, your mom's softball field all the time. So I don't remember my first meeting with him. I think the funny thing would be I think we all remember the video of DJ and JT at the World Series with Jimmy, and that's he has a little spitfire in him, and it was showed at a very early age. But I remember my first exact meeting with him? I don't. Sorry.
No, that's fair. No, that's a great story you told too. I appreciate you sharing that story about how you met Patty there. Going back to Oxford, you mentioned how your team stuck together. That was the thing you were proud of Sunday. I'm fascinated between Saturday and Sunday after a game, like obviously the disappointment of like Saturday. Do you say anything to the players? Do the players speak? How do you handle that? Because clearly you were a different team on Sunday than you were the previous 2 days.
Yeah, I think that you try to handle it the best for the personality of your team. And so I think that when you come out of those 2 games, it's not what we expected. It was not a version of ourselves that we had seen. It was very uncharacteristic in every facet. And so it's one of those things where you don't want to give it too much life because it's not who we are. But it was back-to-back days of it. And so it's just more of like, hey, how we get out of this is working together. And a lot of times when you have games like that or scores like that and you're not used to it per se, you can start looking and going, well, that is bad or that is bad. Well, in fact, we all needed to be better from everyone in our circle. We needed to compete better in the circle. We needed to play better defense. We needed to stick to a plan better in the box. And we as a staff needed to be better at getting that out of our team. And so that was more of it. It's just like the only way for us to turn the page is for us to do it together. And so that's the thing I was most proud of is like, hey, we can feel really bad about how we performed and want more, but we also need to remember that's one. You don't get extra losses if it's a run differential that is bigger than we want to talk about. It still counts as one, and we have to turn the page and we have to figure out how to battle every pitch and how we want it to look like, and not necessarily compete for an outcome, but compete for who we are and what we want it to look like.
you've told in the past that you learn something each series, win or lose, that you got to work on and improve on. What are some areas that you're working on for your team here for the rest of the year that you've learned so far?
I think it's how when the unexpected happens, how do we just refocus emotionally and how do we refocus on the moment? I think that's something that kind of got away from us this weekend. And I also think it's I have things that I need to do better as the head coach and as the pitch caller and as things I need to look at. I think all of us need to reflect on how each of us individually can do more and can do better. And so I think that's the piece. And then I think it's trusting the plan and committing to the plan before having to live it. I think that's the big thing is just that trust piece. I think that's the piece that we saw on Sunday is just trusting our ability, trusting our prep, and knowing that we're prepared for that moment. And if something happens unexpectedly, then we move on and we refocus to the moment. And I think that's what we did really well from Friday and Saturday to Sunday.
Justin?
Yeah, I got a couple. I want to go back to the Ole Miss series. Wuchenyo, the Ole Miss pitcher. You did well against her on Friday in the sense of you didn't strike out nearly as much as she struck out other teams this year. So you limited that part of her game. But your adjustment on Sunday against her was pretty clear and pretty direct. What was that adjustment? Like, was it the same plan and just executed better? Was it a different plan from Friday to Sunday against her?
I can't say that it's a really big change of our plan. It was definitely more of a commitment to the plan. We don't strike out a lot in general, and so that's not necessarily our plan. Is we have to be really more like a lot more selective in the pitches that we're going to hunt. I think that there's a number of things that can change, or kind of come off the rails a little bit of just when you're trying to be really disciplined and you have some early zone things that you're working through that maybe feels like it's, a little different than what you're used to. And then you all of a sudden are stretching your zone a little bit. That's just facts. Every zone's going to be a little different. And so I think there were certain things that caused us to kind of get out of our plan a little bit, and we just didn't really refocus well. So I wouldn't say the plan was a lot different from Friday to Sunday. Obviously, the commitment to the plan was different. You could see that from the jump. And so and obviously once you see it live, you're going to have a little bit different perspective. What we need is for them to, have that shift before they have to live it.
And then I want to ask you about your two freshman pitchers, or two of your freshman pitchers, Harrison and Burnham. Not their best outings over the weekend, and they're freshmen. So I'm curious, you're in the bullpen with them every day. What do you do this week to make sure that those, not great outings in the first SEC games don't stick with them, that they still do what you've seen them do through the first 4 weeks?
Oh, I think it's just making sure we're staying committed to our process. I think that they're really great pitchers that maybe didn't have great outings. And so we say, hey, you're a great pitcher that didn't have a great outing. And this is why. This is what we need to work on. This is what we need to fine tune. I think they're great pitchers. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to be better at execution and picking up on the things that we need to be better students of on both sides, with them, with our catchers, with me, all of it, to just have more of a collective process. I think that's the thing is runs are going to happen. I think we're seeing throughout the conference, runs are going to happen. We can't have the big inning. And so we just have to make better adjustments, quicker adjustments. And so it's just getting back to our grind. We don't have to reinvent anything, which is really nice. They're really great pitchers. We just have to make sure they're in a good headspace to compete this weekend.
This one for me, Carly Davidson's been a little bit of a steady Eddie for you the last couple of weeks. The last non-con week, and then came through for you. I mean, even in the loss on Saturday, she looked really good. Obviously, she wasn't necessarily your biggest name portal addition, but she's really done well for you. Can you speak to what she's done and the work she's put in to get to that point this year?
Oh, well, yeah, she's one of our hardest workers. We just had a bullpen and she's in there hitting on her own. She just grinds. I think the thing that is one of her biggest attributes is just her competitive maturity, her emotional maturity of, I don't think the year started how she wanted or how she worked for. She let the game come back to her. And then you see Mary Nutter, and she had some of our best at bats, but her hits didn't fall. And that can cause you to go two different ways. You could be like, man, I feel really good. It's a game of inches. I didn't get the inches this time, but I'm going to stay the course. Or you can start pressing. And she did the first one, and she's just continued to just elevate, stay the course, stay super level, and just kind of really trusting the plan. I think that's the big thing. She executed the plan really well throughout the weekend. And so how do we get that in everybody? And I think that she's a leader in every way. And I think she's just so consistent. And I've just been really impressed with how she stayed emotionally level and not didn't ride the highs and the lows of outcomes, but more so of just trusting her prep and knowing that she's prepared.
That it?
Just got a quick thought. I mean, is there word about the attendance? Could be record. I mean, sold outs. What? Any words on the attendance for this weekend?
I think we're almost sold out. I would, I don't know.
All right.
I'm just at the field working bullpens, I would expect it to be sold out, and I would expect this crowd to look very similar to our Texas Super, where there's not an empty seat. We have spillover onto the street a little bit, maybe onto the hill across. I think it's going to be an electric environment, and it'll be fun. That's why you do it,
Thank you guys. Appreciate
Thanks.
it.